morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to today's conversation. And sorry about my startled expression because Enolia's missing. I don't know. Enolia, are you actually there? Oh, hello.
Hello.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to our program for today. And our topic is living and leading sourced in the new earth. And our guest, my co-host Enolia, and our guest, Gayle Nowak. Gayle, thank you so much for joining us. And we give our guests the chance to choose the topic. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
It's such a pleasure to be here having this conversation today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
That's all right. It's a real pleasure. And great to have you, Enolia, because I went,
Yes.
oh, for a minute we went. I thought, oh dear, she's gone.
I'm back.
You're back. Brilliant. So, Gayle, share a little of your story, who you are, and why this particular topic is so, it speaks to you, I should say, is probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, thank you. So first, just for the viewers, just a little tiny bit about me. I really believe that everyone deserves to be seen and heard, especially in a world that teaches us to be fake. I'm personally and professionally, I'm a transformational speaker. I'm a visibility breakthrough coach. I'm a creator of Sage Sensation retreats, and I offer talks and retreats and coaching for transformational healers and leaders who want to boldly share their magic to help create the new earth, and really have an impact in shaping what the new earth is going to be. So that's kind of the inspiration for this topic, talking about living and leading sourced in the new earth. And really for me, that means making space for source in your life. Now, source is the word that I'm using today, but that might be the universe or God or a higher power, however you refer to it. And really being open and committed to hearing that wisdom from that universal energy, working with you and through you for the greatest good and the highest expression. So that's really what I mean when I talk about living and leading source. And this is something that was sort of in the periphery of my life, most of my life, until about 3 years ago, when I was invited by a colleague and a client to support her. She was doing a retreat for this woman named Darla Ledoux, who at that time was making a shift in her business. I said yes to this invitation. I was actually sort of living and leading sourced without realizing it. My colleague, my client, she said, I just have this feeling that you need to meet her, and I really would like to bring in your expertise for this retreat. And actually what was happening was that we were birthing Darla's new brand. And I was really kind of trusting, I was trusting my colleague that this was meant to be. It was a beautiful experience. And I had no idea how things were going to unfold from there, because it was true. In fact, I was meant to meet Darla. She later, a year later, became my coach, became my mentor. And at that time had really set a framework and really like the language and the context for what this actually means, living and being sourced. And in fact, her brand is called Sourced Experience. So I have to mention her because she's a part of that journey, in me really being intentional and conscious of living and leading this way. This is something that happens whether you're conscious or not, right? but this is really how it all began for me. And it's completely shifted the way that I do my business. It's shifted the way that I live my life. It's a lifestyle, it's a practice, it's a commitment. And it's really all about, like I said, making space for the divine to work with you and through you. And that sounds like a simple concept, but it takes some courage, and it takes patience, and you really have to be open to surrendering control, letting go of control, which was not an easy thing. It has not been an easy thing for me historically. So it was a real foray into pushing my edges, but it totally worth it, right? Because it helped me evolve and grow and expand and create completely different possibilities in my life that I had been creating up until that point. So I don't know if you've had an experience like that, if you recognize in your own life where you've been living and leading sourced, either intentionally or just happening around you.
So Enolia, please feel free to share.
So the answer is yes. And for each of us, it happens a different way. And for each of us, what typically happens is that we reach a precipice in our life where we're just like, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be another way. Because how I'm living, what I'm going through doesn't suit me, doesn't feel good, and I don't want to be a part of this or a party to it. And so for me, that time came while I was working in corporate. And so to take that leap, to look for another way, to understand that there is another way to live, another way to be, another way to acknowledge yourself, another way to appreciate yourself, another way to be connected to source, because you believe that you're connected to the source, you believe that you're connected to spirit fully, but you really haven't explored what that feeling feels like, what that feeling can feel like embodied, and then how that feeling impacts you when your life actually does align. And so for me, it was a different journey in terms of the fact that I met my first Indigenous grandmother. And so I was shown a whole nother culture, a whole nother way of life that embodied that, which opened up the world for me and started me on a completely different path, opposite of where I was in corporate. And some of the things that you said were really powerful, and you know, we say them in passing, but I want to highlight that it is no joke to live life in the unknown, because we want to control everything. We want to establish our environment, say that this is the bubble, this is how I can feel comfortable in the bubble. And when you are living your life in the unknown, what you're basically doing is that you're living your life and you don't know the boundaries. And there isn't a comfortable place sometimes, that your uncomfortable becomes your comfortable. And your trusting is so heightened and so sharp, and your instincts are so just heightened is the best word that I can use to describe it. And that you trust yourself, and that you trust what you're being told, and that you trust how to navigate through this life with that connection to source, with that connection to creator. And so I love that you're a transformational coach. I am too, in that regard, of leading people to wanting to share, this is how you can be and live. And this is how good it can feel. And this is how great and satisfying it is once you embrace and arrive and allow and release and let go and surrender. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. So.
Thank you. And I think for me, again, it was very different because of the place of total insecurity that I was in. Of when I say insecurity, I felt unwanted, unloved, not good enough. I was just so insecure in myself because I had no idea who I was. Not helped by story from childhood, also not helped by my Catholic upbringing. And really the wake-up call of sort of suddenly realizing, actually, why am I worrying about what other people think? Because they're not about me anyway. And it's when does the wake-up call? But it's also about coming to an understanding, having read Conversations with God, that actually not just Catholicism, but many religions. And don't get me wrong, if you are a follower of a religion and it lightens your life, brightens your life, feels really good, and you are comfortable and confident in it, I'm not saying get out of it, because we are all here to have a choice. My choice was to step away, not just from Catholicism, from the whole lot. I didn't know where I was going, but slowly I have found what works for me. I am very much a believer. I don't tend to use the word God anymore. I tend to use the word creator or source or great mystery, because I do love that. I really do. So they're the terminologies that I tend to use. I very much believe in Mother Mary and in Jesus, the angels. But I believe in a whole lot more, because I believe in dragons and many other mythical beings that are here to support us. And isn't the awakening, I suppose, for each and every one of us is going to be different. Our beliefs will be what are comfortable for each and every one of us. But for me, it was about that learning to believe in myself, to trust myself, to trust the gut instinct, listen to my heart. And so I love the fact that I know we've done a program about New Earth recently, but we're coming at it from a totally different perspective in this program. And I love that, because this to me is about the self, about helping our mind and our ego that has controlled us when we listen to the news and it goes into scare and fear, all the fear mongering and everything that goes around, to being able to help it and support it, to listen and connect with our heart, which for me is our connection to our soul, which is the connection to source. And so, yes, my life has changed. It changed very differently to both of yours, but I think that is what is so wonderful about the shares that we do on this program, because we can hopefully touch the lives of so many more people that will hopefully resonate with at least one of the people and their experience. And it is about our intention. What is our intention, not just for ourselves, but for everyone? So do we live our lives intentionally, or do we just, and I know it's good occasionally to go with the flow, but by living intentionally, we have an aspect of control over what we listen to and hear, what we do, our boundaries. So, Gayle, let's come back to you.
Yeah, wow. There's so many good great things in what you and Enolia have shared. And so I'm just kind of feeling into where to go, because I feel like I could pick up on quite a few threads there. I want to speak to a little bit of what you started with, Sara, in regards to your childhood experiences, that feeling of not feeling loved, not feeling like you belonged, and how you really had to learn to love yourself and trust in yourself. And that is a really important place to pick up on, because we've all had some version of that. We've all experienced some version where we have learned as a survival strategy to abandon ourselves. And the language that I use around this is called default energy, when we're living our life through that filter. And that's what cuts us off from living and leading sourced. And we don't necessarily know that we're doing that. And that's where that surrender and that control piece comes in, because at one point in our lives, we needed that survival strategy in order to navigate what we're experiencing. And we often do not have the skills or the resources or the people to support us in letting that go. And so we just carry that into our present, and then we live our life that way. And then we find ourselves wondering, well, geez, here I am, and I'm not happy. What's going on here? I know that that's definitely something that's come up for me several times in my life, where I've said to myself, geez, I've got all the things that I said I wanted. How come I feel empty? How come I feel frustrated? How come I feel unfulfilled? And actually, as uncomfortable as that is, as unpleasant as that is, when you're conscious to the fact that, and committed to living and leading in this way, being this way, you learn to recognize, oh, okay, this is actually an invitation. I've gotten a little off track. I'm back into my default patterns. And it's simply an invitation to not try to eliminate that from your life, not cut it out from your life, but to really use it as a springboard to get back on track, to shift it from that default pattern into that sourced energy place where you are releasing, as Enolia, you said, letting go, surrendering. And you're right, it's it's a big ask, especially when we've been conditioned and programmed to really value our mind and our ego and the logic and the reasoning over our hearts. And so I love what you said, Sara, about really being in our hearts, living from the heart with the mind supporting us, not the mind leading us to the detriment of our heart, of our soul, of our essence.
Enolia.
Absolutely. And I love that the fact that today, for those who are kind of skeptic, to say, oh, my ego has to do everything. I need the ego for this, I need the ego for that. But I always love bringing up the Heart Math Institute in California, where they have proven that the heart has a neurology around it, and that the heart actually thinks. And, a lot of people will also share that, well, I don't know when I'm in ego versus when I'm in my heart. How do I explain that? How do I know? How can I tell? And, the beautiful thing about this is that I'm one of those people that kind of deep dives into everything. And I wanted to be able to really share with people how you can know the difference. And the brain has that duality, right? We have right, left, hot, cold, in, out, good, bad, it's got that duality, the two halves of the brain, right? It's always going to share with you opposite. But what I've learned about the heart that we don't realize it is that when we learn about the heart, we learn that it has 4 areas or 4 sections, the upper ventricles and the lower, so on and so forth. And, it's 4 parts, but actually the heart is not multiple parts. The heart is one muscle that has actually been knotted into 4 parts. So with the twists and the turns that it takes, it looks like this. But when you actually unknot it, it is one long muscle. Okay? And so therefore there's no duality in that. It's not 2 halves. And I love to take it like that next step, because I work with my beautiful friend, Dr. Linda Tulloch. She's actually been on. And she did this wonderful masterclass on the medicine wheel. And I love the fact that when we attribute to traversing the dimensions in our meditation and everything else, that view of the heart, when it's unknotted, gives you that same view of like what the black hole would be. That view of that just cylindrical piece of that's where you want to be. That's where you aspire to be. When you're traversing that mind and releasing and going, I want to go deeper inside. To give people a visual of that. So it's really important to understand that we're not just saying, go into your heart and, let your heart follow. And, there's really nothing there. We're saying that the discovery is that we've been informed differently in the past, not truly understanding what the heart brings in its entirety, to be able to go deep into the heart and to be able to respect it and understand what it brings to bear when we follow our hearts and we allow our lives to be navigated by the heart. So I'll leave it at that and let you.
But I think for a lot of people, it's, oh, you've got to live from love. Yes, but we've got to remember that living from love very much includes the tough love stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It is not all about, oh, there, dear, doesn't matter. It might be, yeah, it does matter. And there are always consequences to actions, whoever you are. Love isn't about saying, there, dear, never mind. Love can be about, no, that is not acceptable behavior. That has exceeded the boundaries. And there are consequences to your actions. So love has to be tough at times. I know it's a term that I've heard many, many times, even from childhood. But those people who think, oh dear, all this woo-woo stuff, we've got to live from love, we've got to live from the heart. It's about honoring who we are, our boundaries, what is and isn't acceptable to us, if you like, once we wake up to who we are, once we unlearn everything that we've told we should be, we should do. And mostly it's doing rather than being. It's, you've got to go out, have a really good job, earn an awful lot of money. That's not about being, that's about doing. It's about making your parents proud. It's about making whoever, you've got to be the best you possibly can. You've got to be better than everybody else. Be better than you were yesterday. Grow into the best you can be. And each day that can expand. And I like to step away from the word change. It is about any of us changing. Change suggests there's something wrong. It's about us growing. Every experience we have is a teacher. What are we learning from it? And sometimes it might be, oh, not doing that again. That felt awful. That felt horrible. That felt wrong. But unless you actually have the experiences, you don't know. And you can never start again because you've had those experiences and you are starting from a different place and from being a different person. And that is, for me, that is what this is about. The more we connect with ourself, love ourselves, trust ourselves, believe in ourselves, the more caring of ourselves we are. We can actually genuinely bring that to others. And it's helping people to understand that what the true meaning of selfish is. And I know I've shared about selfish before. So if anybody really wants to know, I will speak about it. But selfish isn't about saying, no, that doesn't feel right for me. It might feel selfish to the individual who wanted you to do something, but if it's against the grain for you, all you are doing is living genuinely from your heart, from source, from what is right for you. It doesn't mean we don't help and support others. We do it within the confines, if you like, of what is right for us. Gayle.
Yeah, wow. So good. This is so good. Enolia, I love the visual of the heart. It's so, I've never thought about it that way. And I'm also a fellow deep diver. So that was very cool to have that visual. And Sara, I love what you're saying about, this isn't about just, it's not about bypassing, right? It's not about turning a blind eye to the darkness, to the shadow. Like that is not at all what this is about. In fact, there's a lot of shedding that needs to happen. Well, it depends on the individual. I know for me personally, there was a lot of shedding of the old ways of being in order to even access my heart, because it was so armored up from the experiences in my past, in my childhood. And we can't necessarily connect to that place when we're in a survival pattern. And it requires a deep level of trust and a deep commitment to getting on the other side of that journey. And it's messy and it can be dark. I mean, I spent a good solid year really diving deep into a lot of things that I had been trying to ignore and avoid, or thought I had healed and dealt with it when I wasn't really dealing with it at all. And it was difficult, and it completely turned my life upside down. And being on the other side of that, I can say I live far more authentically. I'm far more tapped in and tuned in to the universe. I'm much happier. I'm more at peace. I have tools and resources when I do get off course to know how to tend to my needs and my feelings and get back into that higher vibe. It's not about, hey, you got to stay in this high vibe forever and forget the sadness, forget the grief. It's not about that. It's about leaning into that and leveraging that and moving what you can, shedding what you can, and healing what you can, so that you can receive from source even more so. So I love that you brought that up. And I also love that you spoke to boundaries, because that's the other thing too. There are these messages of love everyone, have compassion for everyone. Yes. And be really clear and discerning about that. What are you available for? What are you not available for? And speak what's true for you about that. Communicate that to other people, and be okay if some people are going to be, some people will be able to honor that, and some people will not be able to honor that. And sometimes that's the people who are closest to us. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for them. It's uncomfortable for you. And, maybe you spend a lifetime with this person and you're like, oh my God, I don't know where we go from here. And so it's not a joke. I think Enolia, you said it's no joke. Like, living this way it's so rewarding, and it's so true, and it's so authentic. And because we've received so much external influence, it can feel shocking. It can feel really shocking. And so I'm super grateful to have had a container where I didn't have it at first. I started out on this journey, and I was trying to go it alone. And I got to a point, and then because I was willing, the people showed up, the resources showed up, my soul family showed up, right? And again, talk about living into the unknown. I said yes to that support, which was also something at that time was really, really hard, difficult for me to ask for help, to accept help, to receive help. But being in that kind of container of support, it just made the journey so much more rich and not so lonely, and just a more pleasurable experience. So, if you're walking this path and you need support, there's support out there. I just want the viewers and the listeners to know, like, this does not have to be, I'm kind of a recovering lone wolf. That's what I'm trying to say. Recovering lone wolf, right? Where, like, I really was sort of left to figure things out on my own at a very young age, and had to really learn how to receive support. And I can tell you that the support is out there if that's what you feel that you need in order to live and lead this way.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that we talk about leaning into our darkness. A lot of times when people hear spirituality or transformation, they have this perception, and I'm generalizing, that, all has to be love and light and good and everything else. But we're not striving to be in nothing but light. What we're striving to do is we're striving to be balanced. We're striving to walk into balance. You need night and you need daylight. Okay? Like yin and yang, right? You sleep in the night, you recharge, you rest, you come to peace, and then you get up during the day and you function and you move and you engage, and then you come to night and you rest. Well, the same thing is happening when we have our dark and our light. We come to light, we have these epiphanies, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. And there are times we need to source our dark. We need to source our dark and just say, I will get through and navigate through this piece, and I have to be tough. And that's the part of me that needs to navigate through this circumstance or this situation. And I have to source from that place within me that says, I can establish a boundary, I can stand in that boundary, and I can speak my authentic voice in there, and I can hold that. And it doesn't mean I'm any less light because I do. It just means that I'm not a doormat. We have to be able to come to that balance and know that it's okay to source from wherever we need to source from. And always strive that we can walk that path knowing that it's a part of us. You can't cut off your arm because your arm did something negative, And we have this idea sometimes, not, I don't want to generalize too much, that we have to, let go of parts of ourselves because we perceive them as bad or wrong, or no. In coming to a spiritual place is to accept the totality of yourself, the totality of all parts of me. And that, yes, I may feel vulnerable because I have this part of me that's really jealous, and I have this part of me that's really insecure. But the key here is that I won't cut off that jealous or insecure part of me, but it doesn't need to lead my life. I can acknowledge that I have jealousies, that I have insecurities. And then I can allow that vulnerable piece to just basically say, yes, there are times I can get jealous. There are times I can be insecure, and yes, that's very much a part of me. But I choose not to allow that aspect to lead my life. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. It just doesn't get to lead. And then I accept the totality of myself. And then there is nothing that anyone can say that can really hurt me because I've accepted that part of myself. So if you tap into saying, oh, well, you're this, this, and this, well, yeah, I can be. And I'm okay with that. That I've accepted all aspects of me as I walk through this life. So those pieces are important to understand that we need the dark, we need the light. That's what we are. That's the makeup of our energy. That's who we are. And the strive is the balance.
Yeah, and brilliantly put, because before you started speaking, I was thinking we have the polarities inside us. We have the dark, the light. We have the caring and the anger. And people trigger us. And can we control the triggers? Yes, providing we are kind enough to ourselves to say, I'm taking a step back. I require time to think. I require time to get my terminology is, I require time to get my head around this. Something's happened just recently that's dragging me into other people's stuff, but unfortunately, I am dragged in and I cannot get out because it is sadly to do with Gift of Healing TV and an interview I've done on here. And I am being dragged into something. But I am going to be time to think about it. Time to speak to people about it. Trying not to bite, to jump. So when we have those polarities, we're allowed that because that's who we are. We have both. It is up to us whether we want to go in like a bull in a china shop without any thought, and we therefore can break our own boundaries. And then we come out feeling really uncomfortable with ourselves, the way we have been. Whereas by taking the step back, by giving ourselves time, and at the same time, we are giving the other people time, whether they require it or not. It's beside the point. We don't, as you were saying, Gayle, we don't have to do it all ourselves. If there are others involved, involve them. If you require support, seek that support. Whether it's for you, whether it's for a situation, whatever it is about, we all have stuff that crops up. And we can either be very disappointed with ourselves that we got our buttons pushed and we didn't take the time to chill a bit. Or we can be very proud of ourselves for sitting back, saying, I have no intention of answering you now. I will answer when I can come at this from a better place. And it's not easy to do. It really isn't. I don't think any of us here are saying, do you know what? This stuff is easy. It's not.
No,
Because
it's not. It takes practice. It takes practice.
Lots of practice. You know, somebody triggers you, and in the past, you've just gone right in there. And it does. It's that take a deep breath, take a step back, give yourself time, because things resolve themselves quicker when we're more measured about them. You could use other words, but measured is the one that came into my head. So love your polarities. The biting, the triggers are learned behaviors. We can let go of those. It's our choice. And something that will come up and you think, I thought I dealt with all that. And I love it. It's the layers of the onion. It's that healing process. It's that whatever you want to call it. And if there are times you really do require to have a jolly good cry, let yourself do it. Really do, because washes the windows of your soul. It clears your eyes. It clears your sight. It lets go. It's a really positive thing, providing you don't wallow in it. So allow and love the polarities in your life, because they help us to grow. And one of the things is just like, why does this keep happening to me? Because you keep acting in exactly the same way every time something similar occurs. The only way to stop it from reoccurring is to change, and I am going to use that word change, how you react to it. So next time you're triggered and you think, oh no, not again, think about stopping. Taking time, taking a deep breath, and finding a different way to react. That is, I think that's what you mean by living and leading sourced. Because we're starting to live from the heart, and we're helping the mind, the ego, to stop reacting, stop using that learned behavior. Gayle.
Yeah, right. Because the ego's there to protect us. It has a job. It has a purpose. It has a function, and it's not always right, right? And so what I'm hearing in what you're saying, Sara, is the difference between you're describing the difference between reacting and responding. Mm-hmm. And I love that you spoke to the pause, right? To really not ignore the feelings, not ignore the trigger, but to use that as information, as a compass of, ooh, something's feeling out of alignment for me here. And maybe I need to take a step back. It's about, I like to call this riding the wave or surfing the wave. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had several experiences within the last year where immediately was triggered and allowed myself to feel the emotions and to speak the emotions, not necessarily to the person who triggered me, but to process. I gave myself the space to process. I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? What is this about? What do I want to do? How do I want to respond? And sometimes that can be, you just need a couple minutes. Sometimes you need an hour. In this particular instance, I needed 24 hours. And lo and behold, I never even really had to go too deeply into it, because the silence spoke for me. Because I was giving myself the space to process what was going on, to understand why am I feeling so triggered about this. That's energetic. The person felt the silence. The person felt that space, and they walked back what they were doing. And then my response was, you know what? No, I am uncomfortable with that, and that's not what I want. And that's all I had to say. And it was calm, and it was compassionate, and it was loving. This is somebody who's very close to me, you know. So when it's somebody you care about and it's close, it can get messy sometimes. And it was actually a beautiful sourced experience of, okay, how am I going to show up this time? And it showed up differently.
Yeah.
Because of exactly what you're saying, of loving all the parts of ourselves. You know, I was angry, I was furious, right? But instead of tamping down that anger, I allowed it to flow through me, right? If we limit the negative emotions, we also limit the upper end of the positive emotions. If we can't feel that anger, we can't feel that love, we can't feel that joy, right? And so it's really about expanding your capacity to feel all the feelings, expanding your capacity to receive a lot of different situations, and to, like you said, take the time to process what's happening within you before reacting to what's happening outside of you.
Yeah. Enolia.
Yes, very much so. Of how we process is a major piece of all that we do. It's interesting because I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that what constitutes growth? And what constitutes growth is recognizing that you've been triggered, recognizing that your boundary has been reached, and then going into that uncomfortable place to say, okay, this was my boundary. This is where my limits reach, and this situation or this person or this circumstance is pushing me beyond my comfort level. That's where the growth takes place. That's the exact moment that it's like, okay, I either have to step up and grow, or if I make the same decision and I make and get the same result that I usually do, this is going to happen again. And this is why it happens again, because what happens is, I love to teach that you come to a crossroads, and that crossroads is the decision point. And there's that decision point where you're comfortable on one side, and this is the decision you always make or you react to. And then there's the other side, which is like, okay, this is new. I don't know where it's going to go from here. I've never gone down this road before. So am I going to go down a rabbit hole where I know it's comfortable and easy, and this is the decision I always make? And that's where we usually go until we start living in that unknown, and we're going to go, okay, I'm going to force this different decision, right? Because I want a different outcome. Because what was it, Einstein who said, the craziest thing you could think of is expecting change or expecting a different outcome when you do the same thing over and over and over again? No.
Madness.
Madness. So it's insanity, right? So it's imperative that we recognize that the decisions that we make shape us, and that instantaneous decision where we don't take pause is why we get the same results over and over again, because we're not thinking, we're not taking that breath, we're not stopping in silence and going, okay, I'm at that precipice of that crossroads of a decision, and I need to get somewhere different, so I'm not going to make the same decision, even though this is the unknown. So there we go back to that whole story of living in the unknown, because when we make that different decision, we don't know what that outcome is going to be. We don't know that path. We're not clear about it. Is that where I want to go? I'm not sure. And so that's why it makes it hard. But the beauty of this is that that's what life is about. there's really nothing that guarantees that even if we do make the same decision all the time, that we're going to still have or be the same life that we're going to, you know? Sometimes when we make that, you know, spirit tells us go left, and we're so used to going right, and we go right, and then all of a sudden an accident happens and it changes the course of our life. And had we just made that different decision and honored our instincts and our trust and everything internally, it would have saved us a scenario that we didn't want to deal with. So it's imperative to take that pause, and it's imperative to grow beyond our boundaries and live that life that's unknown, so that we can have change, or we can navigate through life and invite new into it.
Yeah. We're coming towards the end. This has been a fascinating conversation, and it's been so deep and so true to each and one of us. And I am always so grateful to that. And I hope that the folks that find this program, because they will, it speaks to them. And because we've all shared, we've shared the same information uniquely. So before we close, and obviously I will sort of hand over to Enolia to do the close. Gayle, is there anything that we possibly haven't touched on that you would like to add to this before we close?
Yeah, I want to circle back. A couple of things. I want to circle back to the idea of asking for support, and that can look like a couple of different things, right? But I really want to, that could be support from family, that could be support from a professional, from a friend, trusted friend, healthy, whole, right? A healthy relationship that you have. But I also want to talk a little bit too, like you can also ask for support from source. You can have a conversation when you receive those triggers or those unwanted results. You can always go into asking, like, what am I meant to learn from this? What is this about? How can I navigate through this so that it's a little bit more proactive than just sort of receiving the intuitive hits? It's a dialogue, it's a conversation, it's a relationship that you're nurturing, right? And so when you're strengthening that bond, when you do get those intuitive hits, like, okay, this is where I'm being guided. I'm supposed to take that left, and you trust it and you don't question it, and you just know it. You don't even necessarily get an answer why. Sometimes you do, right? And sometimes you don't, but you just trust it. So when you're also going to source for support, right? Like, we live in a friendly universe. we live in a friendly universe. It might look messy and chaotic and hectic, and but really it's like that creator energy is there to support us, to love us, to help us, and to lean on in the good, celebrate the good times, right? But also to lean on in those difficult moments. And then I guess the other thing that I'd love to just lead the audience with is I invite you to reflect on or journal about what you might do differently as a result of this conversation about living and leading source, connecting with source, trusting your own inner knowing, whatever it was that spoke to you. What might you do differently as you lean into what that means specifically for you?
Brilliant. Excellent. Right. Obviously, folks can get hold of all three of us. So the only reason I was looking at something else was because I wanted to get your website so I could post it into the chat. But if you'd like to share sort of how folks can get in touch with you, and I will make sure that if you're watching the video on YouTube, folks, the information for all three of us is underneath the video. So please do. if it feels right, if you feel drawn to speak to one of us, please do. That's why we're here. So Gayle.
Yeah, I invite you to drop me a line at Gayle@thestorystylist.com. That's Gayle, and the Story Stylist is all one word. You can explore the resources available at my website at GayleNowak.com, GayleNowak.com.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, and thank you so much for sharing with us. Enolia, handing over to you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And I just want to say that our next guest will be Star Thomas Wise, and our topic will be Love is an Inside Job. And so we're excited to have Star on, and that'll be Wednesday, November 9th. And so we do have a time change. So those of you who are in the US, it'll be 10:30 a.m. PST, 1:30 p.m. EST, and 7:30 BST, and 8:30 my time Angola. So there we are with them all across the board. And so we're excited to have Star coming on for the next show. And you can reach out to Sarah Jane and I. We will always answer anything that you have written or any comments or questions that you have, and we'll make sure they get back to Gayle if you have questions regarding anything that we've spoken about tonight. So Sarah Jane can also be reached at giftthehealingtv.com, and I can be reached at enolia.live. And thank you so much, Gayle, for being here with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Enolia. Thank you, Sara.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, folks. And we will see you again in a fortnight.
We'll see you again.
Namaste, sweet souls. Namaste.